This episode of Inside EMS is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support, and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's LEXIPOL.com. Well, it's time to go Inside EMS. We are live from the Inside EMS studios. There is no Inside EMS studios. I'm in St. Louis. He's somewhere, I don't know, Charleston, West Virginia. I don't know where he is, but here he is, Kelly Grayson. KG, what's going on? How are you doing?
Oh, same stuff, different day, man. Living the dream.
Living large, living life large.
That's right. Well, living life less large than I have been, and that's a good thing. So.
You know, I mean, you're doing good. I mean, we kind of have given you the opportunity to kind of talk about your milestones and where you've been. I mean, You look good. We'll have to do something about that hair. It looks like you combed your hair with a towel this morning.
Well, I did. It's still wet from the shower. So.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, but they got brushes and combs. We can work on that.
Chlorine works. Chlorine wreaks havoc on my hair.
Does it really? Or send me your address and I'll send you a brush or comb and we'll see what that does.
Yeah, gotcha.
But things are good, but you're looking good. You feeling fit, I'm watching you on Facebook as you go to the pool and you're doing like 700 laps a day. And are you swimming now? Because I know you started off by walking, which I thought was very, very unique. I thought it was a very unique way because the water resistance, I think it kind of adds, and as you mentioned, maybe a little bit better on the lower legs, on the joints, but you're swimming now.
Yeah, it's still my Apple Watch that I'm using to track my workouts double counts my arm revolutions when I run in the pool because I'm really pumping my arms, which means that it double counts my calories. I don't particularly care as long as I'm moving forward. So I have gone to swimming, which more accurately counts the number of laps and whatnot I've done and accurately counts the calories burned. But burns about the same. Running in the pool for the same amount of time burns about the same amount of calories as swimming in the pool.
Interesting.
The difference for me is I'm doing it with a snorkel and
not turning your head.
Not turning my head. I got to get more flexible. When I do the head turn thing, even swimming just straight laps with a snorkel, my head down, my lower back starts to tweak after about 60 laps. So I'm doing it with a snorkel, but that works my lungs out. God, breathing through a snorkel is harder than you might think, but I'm doing good.
Still use the count, right? So don't just don't just breathe regular, but as if you were turning, breathe in that 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 motion. But how much have you lost it? I mean, it's been a little bit over a year since you had your alien invasion into your legs. But how much have you down? Are you down so far?
At 312, so which is the lightest I've been in at least 12, 13 years. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So how much total?
Pretty good.
About 80 pounds.
Since October, about since October, about 75 pounds, and overall 80 something pounds.
Very cool. Well, it's good, man. And one of the things that I think everyone has to remember is I think we all have had some challenges with weight and fitness being in EMS, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't take you a week to put the weight on, and it's not going to take you a week to get the weight off. It's a slow process. And some of my coaching clients, when we talk about physical fitness, is I have them join the 1 pound a week club. And all we want to do is lose 1 pound a week. 52 weeks, you're down 52 pounds. But we shouldn't expect that we're going to see amazing results in 14 days, right?
Yeah, it took us years. Lucky in that regard.
Yeah. So, well, good, man. I'm proud of you. And
thank you.
Keep moving along that thing. So, Kelly, I think one of the things that I had a little disagreement with somebody this week about.
A disagreement?
Oh my gosh, it was horrible. This baby, I mean, just kept looking at me. And I'm like, what the heck are you looking at, kid? Because I could take that baby. I know I could take that baby, right? But we were talking about education and how education fits into the future of EMS and that we need education to make more money, blah, blah, blah. But I think that, and I've been a lifelong student, I started going to college back in the early 80s and I'm still in college. But what does it fit? Where does it fit into
Yeah.
EMS? And
Yeah.
I want to talk about the argument. I want to talk about the disagreement, and then see if there's something that moves us forward in
Yeah.
what we eventually look like.
Yeah. Did you tell the baby that he can't have his pudding if he doesn't eat his meat?
I didn't, but that kid was irritating me, man. And he just kept staring at me, and I'm like, what the heck are you looking at, man?
So speaking of education, where are you at in your doctoral program right now?
Yeah, I mean, I just finished my coursework, and it took me about a year and some odd to finish the coursework. And now I'm in the first class of dissertation writing. And it's really weird how they do this, Kelly. So I have to, there's 5 chapters in a dissertation, and you go through classes and you actually, as if they were semesters, and you actually write in the semester, right? So this is the first semester, and I've already written the first 3 chapters. So this is the prospectus. This is the proposal component. So I have to outline what I want to talk about, what my topic is, what my target audience will be, what type of research method am I going to use, qualitative, quantitative, and then, so on and so forth. So it's kind of the blueprint of what
Yeah.
people expect to see throughout this document. And it'll be about a 125-page document, but there have been a lot of people out there that have done this, Greg Margolis back in the day, our friend Ray Bereshansky, and really it is kind of a motivation. I got to tell you, man, I'm 59 years old. I'll be 60, I think, when this is done. I don't think I do anything with it. I think this is truly the icing on the cake of just being a lifelong learner and putting myself in debt until I get put into the casket, right? So
You can't take it with you, man.
you can't really, but
And your kids will spend it all on hookers and blow. So
yeah, I mean, if I taught them right, they will. They'd probably invest it in their IRA or pay their house off or something stupid like that, right? But it's been a good process, and the doctorate I think is going to have. I wanted, if I was going to do this, I wanted it to be something that would benefit EMS,
yeah.
right? Because it is a doctorate in business administration, but the title for my dissertation will be an examination of transformational leadership as an influencer of motivation to transfer resilience training among first responders. Now, what the heck does that mean?
That rolls right off the tongue. It's
Well,
just like quicksand.
it's mine, and I bumbled and stumbled the title, right? But basically, in a nutshell, does the failure of training leaders, and we know that EMS doesn't have that foundation of training leaders, clipboard and keys, here you go, you're in charge today. But does that failure equate to leaders not having the wherewithal to keep our first responders from burnout, committing suicide, and developing the resilience training that they need to be successful in EMS, right? So, I mean, how many people,
Yeah.
Kelly, if you flip a coin right here, how many people have you known in your EMS career that have committed suicide that were on the job with us, right? I could point to
Enough
5 or 6 of my peers that I've worked with throughout my career,
friends. Yeah.
right? But the question is, back in the old days before electricity, when you and I started in this business, there wasn't compassion for our
Yeah.
peers. It
Yeah.
was, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, toughen up, buttercup type of mentality. Is that failure a result of our leadership or our lack of leadership skill? So that's what I'm going to try to prove or disprove. I certainly don't know. This is just my hypothesis to say our leadership skills are failing our people in more
Yeah.
ways than just one. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. We in EMS initial EMS education, we give our students the tools to take care of patients, but we don't give them tools to take care of themselves and their peers. And arguably some programs don't even give their students adequate tools to take care of their patients. The
right.
question becomes is it because we don't know how as leaders, or the leaders we cultivate just don't care? And
That's another great
personally,
point.
I think a lot of that stems from lack of education among the leadership. It's our leadership is education been very practical and results oriented, and it's not very touchy feely. It's been more management than leadership training, and bearing bitter fruit. It's harvesting bitter fruit now as we start to see our peers start to fall by the wayside because of the toll the profession is taking on.
Kelly, so when you think about education, you've done a good job over the years of trying to get the sheepskin on the wall as well, right? So I know you finished your associate's degree. I know you're getting ready to start your bachelor's degree.
Yep.
And this great debate of, do EMS providers need to have a bachelor's degree or higher education to do their job? And one of the things that I did 5 years ago or so is I didn't have a bachelor's degree in EMS management. And I went to Columbia Southern University and I got the bachelor's degree just to take the coursework and see what it was like. Some good instructors. There were some good, and I know you're considering Columbia Southern University as well.
Yeah.
There's some good EMS leaders that are in that program that I think, David Becker is someone that is here in St. Louis and that was my instructor on a few of my courses. But did it help me in my career of being an EMS? And I'm going to say that the answer is no. So over my career, as I started in the leadership realm, and let's say it was really in the early 2000s that I started to get a movement into operations. I was really kind of clinical focused earlier in my career as the clinical coordinator, clinical director of the MedStar system in Fort Worth. And I had the opportunity to work as operations supervisor and actually run the MedStar system about 3 or so times in the transition of those operational leaders. And that was an incredible education for me. I learned system status management. I learned resource management. And I got to tell you, but even some of the skills that I had were horrible, right? I wasn't a good leader. I've talked about that on this show. And really, I had to transition into what good leadership was.
Yeah.
I still learned the operational focus of how to run a system. Even though I was doing it poorly, I had the knowledge and it was on the job training. So as I now got to the educational component of being a supervisor, manager, whatever, with the degree, the experience that I had allowed me to breeze through the coursework, right? So here's the flip of the coin now. Do I need an EMS degree to be a good, effective manager or chief to lead a system? Or does the on-the-job training allow me the same opportunity? And what I'm going to share with you in my experience, and this is why I did this course and took this coursework, was specifically to give this opinion. I did not need to have that degree to learn how to work in EMS operations. There was probably one course that I had no knowledge about that allowed me the opportunity to learn something new. But when we talk about budget, when we talk about deployment, when we talk about unit hour utilization, it was all based on the job training. So my advice to people are, if you're earlier in your career, take the bachelor's degree program that will allow you to learn some of the things that you can now put into place. Because Kelly, there were things that I were doing in my operational leadership career. I just didn't know what it was called. I had to figure it out for myself. Come to find out there's a method to it, right? Well, I didn't know what the method was called. But that doesn't mean we don't need a degree, and we'll come to it. But I've been babbling. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, two things. I don't think that a degree is going to make you a more skilled, either technically or the soft skills, going to make you a better clinician. It's not. Okay. But that's not what the degree is for. The degree is to expand your horizons and to grow your perspective on EMS beyond the next patient and the next call and the next paycheck as you move up that career ladder. The other thing, though, when you say that the degree work was easy for you, you had an advantage. You may not have recognized an advantage. You were working in a high quality EMS system where you could learn things, and a system that's been proven to grow good providers and good leaders. That's actually an anomaly in EMS. The bad EMS systems out there that beat their people down and bludgeon them into submission with the protocol and policy and procedure manual far outnumbers the good systems that allow for growth. So the problem is that when people say, I don't need an education to be a paramedic, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And their only experience in EMS and paramedicine has been bad systems. and that's been the norm for them, and they think that's how it's supposed to work. They haven't had the advantage of working in a med star or a Wake County or a Kings County Med at One or anything like that. So that becomes the norm for them. And it's not until they broaden their horizons a little bit and see what's outside of their own little silo that they start to appreciate the value of knowing those things. Like the kid, I don't need no education. I don't need no thought control. We all hated education when we were little kids, from some teachers. It's not until you get a little older and a little wiser that you realize the value of that education. And I think initially requiring a degree as certification, as a requirement for certification as a paramedic would be a good thing to make people better evaluators of information and more well-rounded paramedics, so they could see, this is not how it's supposed to be in this agency. And I know how it should be done, and I can vote with my feet. And ultimately the agencies that thrive will value that. And the agencies that don't thrive will go by the wayside, as they need to.
As they have.
My opinion on it.
Yeah. But one of the things too is that I think the value for an EMS provider is paramedic school with an associate's degree.
Yep.
And I don't believe that you need an associate's degree when you come out of school, but I think it should be a requirement that you are completing the associate's degree in X amount of time once you complete the paramedic program so you could work. Now, here's my thought process on that. I learned a lot about psychology because I had to take those courses. I learned a lot about writing composition. I learned a lot about math skills. I learned a lot about world history and religions of the world for philosophy. So in my associate's work, because earlier on I got an associate's degree in EMS management, but it was the other classes that had to go along with meeting the requirements of that degree that allowed me to pick up different ability and skill. I didn't use it. So when it comes to philosophy, when it comes to psychology, I use my writing skill because I was horrible at writing. We know that people in EMS, the charts that they write, the way that they spell is a bigger challenge. So I'm not advocating you don't need higher education. What I'm advocating for is take your time to get your bachelor's degree throughout your career, but allow the work that you're doing in the field to be your primary knowledge, and then take your time to get the bachelor's degree. I believe that we should be able to work on getting higher education, but I didn't need it to do the job.
Yeah. Our friend Gary Saffer has an interesting take on education and the levels of practice as paramedics. And he said we should adopt a skills trade model for our education, where you graduate an apprentice paramedic with the bare minimum paramedic skills and scope of practice. And then you graduate and then you move up to journeyman paramedic, and then you move up to master paramedic, and your pay and your responsibility and your scope of practice increases as that. And I, it sounds counterintuitive to say that jives with a higher education model, but it kind of does. You could say, using your analogy, you don't need the degree when you first get out, but within a certain amount of time, you need to move up. The Army or all the military forces, you either rank up or you rank out. You have to keep moving forward. But start as an apprentice paramedic, and if you want greater skills, pay, and responsibility, then become a journeyman paramedic with an associate degree. And when you want to become for those of us who want to become master paramedics with all the tools available in our repertoire, including the ability to move up to leadership and management positions at our agency, bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And a certain small cadre of people may go on to masters and doctorates, but I think that makes a pretty efficient career ladder, and using dovetailing the education in with that. So,
but to cut you off, I think that one of the things, do you have more thought?
No.
But I think that one of the things that you said that was really, really interesting is we're in charge of the career ladder. I shouldn't have to worry about my organization putting something in place for me to grow, right? So we all say that there's no career growth in EMS. Well, there really is. So I may not work as a supervisor in the system I'm working in now, but as I prepare the skill, it's my job to market myself and create the opportunity to get a supervisor job somewhere else. If my
Yeah.
company doesn't allow me the opportunity to move into those positions, they don't owe that to me, right?
No.
But I should be able to train people, as if I'm the leader, to become supervisors. And if my system doesn't allow them to take those roles, I firmly expect them to leave my organization to take those roles somewhere else. So, with that said, it goes back to my philosophy, Kelly, of don't allow anybody else to dictate your professionalism,
Mm-mm.
right? Go to school, learn the skill, and take the opportunities where they come up. I got to tell you, if I train you to be a supervisor, if I train you to be a manager, and you leave my organization to take a role as a supervisor or a manager somewhere else, I don't count that negatively against my attrition rate, right? People
Yeah.
just didn't leave my organization because because we're horrible. They left my organization because they're growing into bigger skill. I consider that a positive. And my
Yeah.
attrition rate does change because I lose, but I'm losing for growth. I'm not losing because
Yeah.
they had to leave us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and that's a good attitude to take as a leader and a manager. You got to see your little birds and leave the nest and learn how to fly on their own. I do think to a certain extent that the agency needs to grow with you.
The
You
agency
have
agency needs to grow with you. What do you mean by that?
exactly that. I've said a long time ago, and still believe it to this day, that a good paramedic ought to outgrow their protocols.
Yes,
Your
you have.
protocols were written for the dumbest paramedic at your service. That's ugly, but that's the way it is in the vast majority of places. Our protocols are supposed to be a floor. In most cases, they're a ceiling, but they're written for the dumbest paramedic at the service to make sure that at least they provide some minimum standard of care. The problem is the way those protocols are often written is that they require the most talented paramedic to dumb down their care to that of the least talented paramedic ceiling. I think that a good paramedic should outgrow their protocols, and hopefully the agency recognizes that, incentivizes that growth, and grows along with them. So, okay, your protocols are real restrictive right now, and because we have a young and inexperienced workforce, but as it goes older, a good leader would look at that and go, I've got some good, talented people, and I would like to keep those people and show them that I reward their incentive and their work ethic and their knowledge and skills. Let's award them better trust and a higher degree of trust and practice, and let's expand those protocols a little bit. And everybody wins in that situation. And if it turns out that you can't grow beyond your protocols at that agency, then you go to another agency. And some agencies might just have to be the minor leagues and the starter programs and the feeders to the real EMS agencies. That's the way it is a lot of places now. And, communities have to decide, do I want the sort of agency where everyone wants to go to, or do I want the kind of agency, or am I going to settle for the kind of agency where people stay a few years and then leave for greener pastures? That's what we have in EMS right now.
Yeah.
The idealist in me wishes that all the pastures were green and that the agencies could grow along with their paramedics. I think without education, you can't grow beyond that. You're just stuck at that level, and then disillusionment and burnout are what's going to limit your career, not opportunities.
And I think in a nutshell, if we put that differently in a little shorter soundbite, if you're the
Yeah,
smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. You know what I
exactly.
mean? So
That is
that's
exactly it.
exactly to the point that you're saying that I don't need to climb the ladder to be the smartest person in the agency. If I do, where's my growth going to continue from?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And I don't think we really take that into effect as paramedics and EMTs. I think that we're charging to be the best that we can be inside the agency. But then once we get there, who's teaching us? Who's guiding us?
yeah,
Who's mentoring?
yeah,
Which we don't do well enough in EMS. But I think it's been a good little discussion,
yeah,
Kelly. And so, from an
yeah,
education standpoint, by no means am I saying that education has no value, because education has future value. I'll give you just, I'll end with this thought and go for your final thought.
Yeah.
My daughter, she said to me, you know, I kept telling her, you need to get a master's degree. You need to get a master's degree. And she's like, you know, Dad, I'm afraid to do it. She wasn't the best of student. You know, she had some comprehension issues in high school and a little bit in college, and it intimidated her to think about getting an MBA. And she said, Dad, will you take it with me? And I'm like, no, I mean, I'm 55 years old. There's no way I'm going to go back to school. But it sounded a lot more like, of course, honey, I'll do it
Yeah.
with you. And, but my point is that when she got her MBA, she was 25 years old. And I said, so you got an MBA, what are you going to do with it? She goes, well, maybe I'll run a department. And I said, here's exactly what you're going to do with it, Angela. Her name's Angela, by the way, is you're going to sweep the floor and you're going to file and you're going to deliver mail because you have no skill. This degree isn't for you today.
Yeah.
This degree is for you 10 years from now when you have kids and you have a house and you have bills to pay and you don't have time to go back to college. You don't have the experience to exercise this degree in the workforce right now. And I think that that's something that we have to be able to think about is as we jump into these milestones, because there are people who are getting master's degrees that come to me as coaching clients and they're like, I can't find a job. And I'm like, well, just because you have a master's degree doesn't mean you have the experience to exercise that degree, right?
Yeah.
And people don't want education. They don't want book smarts. They want experience. They want real world experience and how you've dealt with these things that are in the books.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's heartening to see that Angela has managed to accomplish so much at her age, despite her obvious genetic handicaps.
Yeah. Her mother is just really the worst. So,
but to end it up, you said, you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I'll add to that, your choices at that point, when you realize you're the smartest in the room, is to go to another place where you're among smarter people and so you can grow, or you can make the other people around you in the room smarter and focus your talents that way. And you will grow educating other people just as you would being educated by other people. But hey, that's what we think. We'd like to hear what you think. Email us at the show at ems1.com. Let's talk about educational issues and minimum education requirements and the value of a higher education. Thanks for tuning in to Inside EMS. Rate us on iTunes, and Chris and I will catch you next week.